Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 10-team PPR mock draft from the 8th overall spot on FantasyPro's Draft Wizard. We're going to be drafting up against the expert rankings as well as composite ADP. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, a kicker defense, and 6 bench spots. But before we can get on into this mock draft, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel, and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure they do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into today's 10-team PPR mock draft from the 8th overall spot. So if you are someone that is new to 10-team leagues and typically played in 12-team leagues, there is some different strategy that I think you want to utilize in a 10-team league compared to a 12-team league. In a 10-team league, there are going to be a bunch of teams that are going to be stacked to the gills, that are going to be loaded with talent. They're going to have great running backs, amazing wide receivers. But I think the way to go over the top and beat your opponents in a 10-team league is by attacking a tight end early in drafts or an early quarterback. Now, in some drafts, you might feel the need to even do both, but I do think a good rule of thumb in a 10-team league, where as long as the people you're drafting up against are competent and not complete and utter dunces, you are going to be facing some tough matchups, right? Every single week. So having that top tier tight end like Travis Kelce, while I don't necessarily love him at the 8th overall pick in a 12-team draft, I am much more likely to do it in this scenario because I feel like I'm getting a large leg up at tight end. It's possible in full PPR that Travis Kelce on a week-to-week basis finishes with 3+ more PPR points per game than the second-ranked tight end, which is impossible basically to happen at any other position, right? Justin Jefferson, he's the head of the table, the tribal chief, Roman Reigns style, and he is not going to finish 3 points per game higher than the guy in second, most likely, right? So having that huge edge at tight end or at quarterback could be the reason why you win your league in a 10-team league. So the draft starts with McCaffrey, Eckler, Justin Jefferson, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp. So Saquon Barkley does not get a deal done with the Giants. Will he play on the franchise tag? Will he not? That's definitely up in the air and something we need to monitor. If you are doing your regular redraft league in July for some reason, if you draft Saquon Barkley, make sure that you draft his handcuff. Same thing goes with Josh Jacobs. Tony Pollard's going to play. He is going to be run into the dirt, and Tony Pollard's going to move up my rankings because they didn't give him a bigger contract, and I think they're just going to give him roughly a zillion carries. So again, McCaffrey, Eckler, Jefferson, Barkley, Chase, Hill, and Kupp. So we're up at the 108, and I kind of spoiled my pick. I'm going to go with the best tight end available, which is Travis Kelce. I get it. But Nick, Travis Kelce's getting up there in age, this, that, and the other thing. There's all these arguments, but at the end of the day, they don't really have a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. Sure, they have some names, but no one that's going to be taking away any value from Travis Kelce. Even though he's getting up there in age, he is a red zone monster. He has the upside to score 3+ touchdowns in any given game, and he is going to be the tight end every single week. The best part about drafting Kelce is, unless he gets hurt, knock on wood, or he's on bye, you don't have to worry about having a revolving door at the tight end position. He's just in your lineup every single week, and there's a lot of comfort in having something like that. And again, in a 10-team league, I really do feel like having that elite tight end is a huge leg up on your opponents. After Kelce, we see JT, followed by Stephon Diggs. The second round opens with AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. I am wondering where Saquon Barkley, as well as Josh Jacobs' ADP is going to settle. Are people comfortable taking the risk with those guys in the late first round, the early second round, or are they going to plummet into the third round? Because again, as we're sitting here right now, I am pretty unsure about what's going to happen, but as we get closer to the start of the fantasy football, the start of the NFL season, it should be a lot more clear if these guys are going to hold out or not. I think Josh Jacobs is going to end up playing. Saquon Barkley, though, definitely a big question mark in my opinion. So looking at the board again, we got Travis Kelce. The world is still our oyster. Bijan Robinson available, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs. I think anytime you can get Bijan Robinson in the second round, he should be close to an auto click. I think there are going to be a lot of fantasy football players that are very nervous, incredibly nervous, to draft a rookie running back or just a rookie in general in the first round. They've never seen it in the NFL. They question that some games at Texas, he wasn't the fucking second coming of Barry Sanders, and they're going to be nervous. Especially in a 10-team league. It's very easy to see a path where he goes in the second round, especially if people, like guys like Saquon Barkley, end up suiting up, right? Then Barkley could go ahead of him. People will talk themselves into Derrick Henry. So I think it's very possible he falls into the second round. I'm not buying it, though. I'm drafting him here easily. I'm not buying the doubts. The Atlanta Falcons love to run the ball. They force-fed the ball down the throat of Tyler Algier. You better believe when you pay up big for a running back like Bijan Robinson in the early first round of the NFL draft, they are going to give him a shit ton of carries. They might run the ball the most amount of times in the NFL. Their quarterback, after all, is Desmond Ridder. So they're going to want to run the ball at an incredibly high rate. After Bijan Robinson comes CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Tony Pollard, Devontae Adams, Ramondre Stevenson, Josh Jacobs. The third round opens with 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Mark Andrews, Breece Hall, Miles Sanders, Najee Harris, Kenneth Walker, and Jalen Waddle away, waddle, till the very next day. Nick Chubb in the third round. I would have a full Chubb if I could get Nick Chubb in the third round. This guy legitimately has number one running back upside in fantasy football this season. The Cleveland Browns are going to give him a bunch of carries, even if they do shift to being a more pass-heavy offense compared to last season. I think Nick Chubb with Kareem Hunt out is going to be catching more passes. So I think Nick Chubb is in for a humongous season. Now, Miles Sanders in the third round is very questionable. It's like ejaculating when you are getting your prostate exam. Very, very questionable. So Miles Sanders goes from Philly to Carolina. I get why some people might like him. They view him as this 3-down back. And if he is the 3-down back, maybe the third round price was worth it. But I'd rather just wait until like the 5th round and hope he falls there over pulling the trigger in the third round. I think starting with triple running back in 2023 is going to be the exact opposite of what most people do, right? We saw 2 teams do it in this draft. I think that is going to be far from the normal. So we see Mark Andrews come off of the board in the third round as well. I think that's a pretty solid pick. Kenneth Walker in the third round is disgusting. So the question here is, are we confident enough in going with a tight end and a quarterback early when we have 2 flex spots? Because again, I really think that if you hit on that elite quarterback, that elite tight end, your running backs or wide receivers are still going to be just fine. And in a 10-team league, having that great quarterback, that elite tight end, could really put you over the edge. I still do think, though, I'm so confident in Burrow, Lamar. I think I'd rather just wait until like the 5th round and hope one of them falls there. So look at running back Travis Etienne, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, wide receiver Chris Olave, T. Higgins, and Devontae Smith. So in terms of my rankings, I'm definitely going to go wide receiver here. I have T. Higgins ranked the highest, and then I have Devontae Smith and Chris Olave ranked below them. Now, the question is, are you looking for safety or are you looking for upside? Because if you want pure safety, you want to wrap a condom around your team, which is something I preach early in fantasy football drafts, you want to be safe, then T. Higgins is the answer. He's probably going to finish every single week as like the wide receiver 10 through 14, and if something was to happen to Jamar Chase, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, then T. Higgins would instantly catapult himself into potential top 5 wide receiver upside. Again, he's linked to one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL on a high-powered offense. So I think T. Higgins is a very safe pick, but without an injury to Jamar Chase, I don't think he's going to finish in the top 5. Chris Olave, I'm worried about Michael Thomas, but there is a chance that Chris Olave is just the clear number 1 wide receiver. Derek Carr is slinging him the rock. He gets a shit ton of targets. He's obviously incredibly talented. We knew that coming out of college, and he smashes. So if you want to go risk, I would go with Olave. If you want to be safe, you can go with T. Higgins. For this mock draft, we'll go a little bit more spicy, and we'll go with Chris Olave. Normally, though, I would take T. Higgins in that scenario, but this is another thing I preach all the time. If you're doing a bunch of fantasy football drafts, I would look to, in the third round, if you love T. Higgins, don't take T. Higgins there every single time. Take Chris Olave, take Devontae Smith, right? Sprinkle these other players in, because if you are wrong and you love T. Higgins, and T. Higgins, maybe he's great, but he just gets hurt in week 4, then all your teams are just butt-fucked if he's out for the season, right? So you kind of want to play things safe. That way, after Olave, Joe Mixon, Devontae Smith, Pat Mahomes, and Travis Etienne. So looking at the board, again, we could still get Jalen Hurts, who I like a ton. He is my number 1 quarterback. But like I said, I'm fine waiting for a Lamar Jackson type or even Justin Fields, who I actually have ranked above Lamar Jackson, but FantasyPros has him as the quarterback number 6. So we got Chris Olave, and the pick was between Chris Olave and T. Higgins. And T. Higgins is still here, so we're going to go with T. Higgins this time. I've started to really turn my head personally on Keenan Allen. I was someone that was a little bit nervous. Now I'm all the way back in on Keenan Allen. I like Amari Cooper a ton. I like Calvin Ridley a ton. But again, T. Higgins is ranked inside the top 12 of my wide receiver rankings, and I think he is easily worthy of the 403 in a 10-team league. I would have been happy, like I said, drafting him in the 3rd round. So getting him in the 4th round feels like a very solid discount. If you guys have ended up enjoying this far, you're 10 minutes into the video, so you probably have enjoyed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as well as that like button down below, whether you are new to the channel or not. After T. Higgins, we see Jalen Hurts, J.K. Dobbins, Jahmyr Gibbs, D.K. Metcalf, Josh Allen, Alexander Madison, T.J. Hawkinson. The 5th opens with Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, Calvin Ridley, Wiki, DJ Moore, Deebo Samuel, Drizzy Drake, London, and Ron Jones. If you guys want to see something that will warm your heart as an NFL fan, go to, I think Russell Wilson posted it on Instagram. It was a picture at someone's wedding. I don't remember whose wedding it was, so I apologize if any of you guys know. But it was Metcalf in a suit wearing shorts, which is a weird look. I think he was also wearing Air Force Ones, but he was wearing a suit just with shorts. Russ and Tyler Lockett all at a wedding. It warmed my heart. Broncos country, let's ride, right? Like, we love the memes about Russell Wilson, but seeing those 3 together as a football fan made me smile. I love the old Russell Wilson, man. The new version of Russell Wilson is even more corny than the old version. The old version was definitely better, in my opinion. Obviously, like in Denver, he fucking has sucked. Maybe this year he turns it around, though, with Sean Payton. So looking at the board, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, all still available. I'm going to draft Lamar here. I have Lamar and Justin Fields in the same tier. I have Fields ranked 1 spot ahead of him, but you could easily argue for Lamar Jackson over him. Justin Fields, we've seen 1 solid year out of him, and it wasn't even the whole year. It was just the end stretch of last season. Lamar, while he has been banged up in the past, we've seen him be crowned the MVP. We have seen Lamar Jackson dick down defenses without the use of any lube. We've seen this man run trains on defenses, and I think he's going to do it again in Baltimore this season. He obviously got the big paycheck. Lamar, big checks, and the best part about it is, even though the Ravens, there's a lot of people, oh my God, the Ravens, they're going to be throwing the ball so much more, Nick. Aren't you worried about Lamar? Well, guess what? You don't have to just design run plays for Lamar. Lamar doesn't see anyone open. He tucks it and he runs. And he is going to run hard. He's going to juke people out. Lamar Jackson is one of the best fantasy quarterbacks. Because again, even though he's not the best passer on earth, I think people wrongly call him a running back, right? It's a funny joke. I get it. Same thing with Justin Fields, right? But that's not all he is. He is a much better passer than people give him credit for. This guy has dominated in fantasy football before, right? He was the quarterback number 1 in 2019. I think he finishes inside the top 5 of the position this year, and I'm very excited to see what Lamar can do with even more weapons, because they still have Rashad Master Bateman, they have Mark Andrews, but they draft Zay Flowers, they bring in Odell Beckham Jr. This is the best wide receiver core Lamar Jackson has had in his entire career. After Lamar, we see Chris Godwin, Cam Akers, Jerry Jeudy, and Michael Pittman Jr. So far our team is Lamar Jackson, Bijan Robinson, Chris Olave, T. Higgins, and Travis Kelce. So looking at the running back position, I feel like there is a strong fall off after the Dameon Pierce, James Conner, Swift, maybe not Swift in there, but Montgomery range, right? Those guys I really like. Then you kind of fall down to Javonte Williams. Is Javonte Williams going to be healthy? What's going to happen with him? There's a lot of speculation, but nothing's set in stone, right? It's not like the fucking 10 Commandments. So Who knows? Then you get to Kamara. How many games is he going to get suspended? Is he going to get suspended? There's a lot of confusion, right? So I'd rather just snag my RB2 now. Now, I've seen people talk about how Dameon Pierce should be falling down your rankings. Dameon Pierce ain't that guy, pal. But I think Dameon Pierce is in the best situation he's been in the NFL by far, right? Last year, he had Davis Money Mills, the giraffe neck man himself, the cover or the mascot of Toys R Us. Now, they have a real quarterback. They got CJ Stroud. They have a pretty decent offensive line. Dameon Pierce does have some pass catching upside, and his backup is Devin Singletary, who's about as useful as a ripped condom. So I think Dameon Pierce is going to have an excellent season in 2023. He was a guy that some people might have felt burnt by because there was a hype train for him last year. Choo choo, people were banging the drum for him, me included. I talked about him ever since the 2022 NFL draft, how much I loved Dameon Pierce. He got steamed up to a point where if you drafted him in like the 4th round because you were crazy, you felt burnt. But if you got him like a couple weeks beforehand in like the 7th, 8th round, you felt good about it. So I think this year where he's going, again, the 6th round of a draft, like that doesn't feel egregiously high for a running back that runs as good as Dameon Pierce and in a much better offense. And I think he does have some sneaky pass catching upside. After Dameon Pierce, we see Christian Watson, DeAndre Swift, DeAndre Hopkins, back-to-back DeAndres, Rashad White, Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett in my pocket. Skirt, Christian Kirk. The 7th opens with my boy Deontay Johnson, Dalvin Cook, George Kittle, Kyle Pitts, Joe Shiesty, Dallas Goedert, and Darren Waller. If you get Pitts in the 7th round, I'm fine taking him. The problem with tight end runs that happen in every single fantasy football draft is people panic, right? Kittle comes off the board, then Pitts comes off the board, and then Baker's dozen wild goose chase here, they shit themselves. Like, oh, I need Goddard. I need Waller. I love Waller. I love Waller this season. But I'm not drafting him where 4 picks ago, George Kittle went. There's just no reason to do that, in my opinion, and it's very clear that that fantasy football player panicked in a big way. So looking at the board here, I think we're going to go with another running back and then start smashing wide receivers. Mike Williams is a guy I talked about in yesterday's video as a guy that's falling down my rankings. Now, he's not necessarily like a complete and utter avoid, because if he falls, anyone that I say I'm not as high on, like if they fall to a range, then it's like, okay, I'll draft Mike Williams. But where he's going on underdog is like the wide receiver 25-ish. That just seems a little gross. Here, wide receiver 30 feels a lot better for me. But this range is just kind of like, I like Hollywood Brown. I like Mike Evans. But I think I'd rather just get James Conner here and then hope one of them fall back to me within the next 4 picks here, because obviously there's only 4 picks until I get to pick again. So I'm just going to pray to the fantasy gods that happens. I'm going to get my guy James Conner. I think this guy is going to stunt on people. Now, obviously, there's always the injury-prone narrative with James Conner, but at the end of the day, James Conner's stats with Kyler Murray versus without over the last 2 years are very damning, because when Kyler Murray wasn't playing, James Conner literally was one of the best running backs in fantasy points per game. Kyler might miss all of this season. I am in love with James Conner this year. In the 7th round is great. I know it's saying, oh, that's a snag, that's a steal, but I feel like I'm not comfortable taking James. Even though I love James Conner, I'm not taking him in the 4th or 5th round. The 7th round feels a lot more fair to me. After that, we see Justin Fields, David Montgomery, Mike Williams, and Javonte Williams. So we made the correct bet. Only one wide receiver went on that turn, so we get to pick here. I have been someone that I love the Niners offense. I love Brock Purdy if he starts, which I'm thinking he will. I like the player Debo. I love the player Brandon Ayuk. I love George Kittle. I love Christian McCaffrey. But I'm very nervous that there are too many cooks in the kitchen. I'm very nervous that while I think Brandon Ayuk's a fantastic player, but he's been locked in the doghouse in the past with Kyle Shanahan, am I confident enough in Ayuk beating out Debo, becoming this number 1 guy when you have Kittle, you have McCaffrey who's just going to siphon targets? I just don't want to do it. Now in the 8th round, I get it. It's the fucking 8th round. It's not round 4 or something, but I'd rather just draft Mike Evans. I know some people think, oh, Mike Evans getting up there in age. Mike Evans, Prince, 1,000-yard seasons. Is this his whole career, right? Since 2014, 1,000 yards every single year. Every single year. He's been a top 12 wide receiver basically every single year. But Nick, Baker Mayfield is on the team. Oh my God. Who gives a shit, man? This guy was dominating with famous Jameis, dominating with Johnny Football. He's going to be just fine with Baker Mayfield. And he goes so late. It's like people just don't respect Mike Evans at all. He's a safe pick with a bunch of upside if maybe Baker Mayfield just turns back the clock and plays like he did back in college. After Mike Evans, we see Isaiah Pacheco, who I'm starting to get a little bit more worried about, if I'm being honest with you. Brian Robinson, Brandon Ayuk, Hollywood Brown, James Cook, Justin Herbert, the pervert, Treylon Burks. The ninth opens with Alvin Kamara, Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kadarius Toney, Devin 2 Chains, and A.J. Dillon. I believe, as you guys are watching today's video on the 18th, if you're watching it the day the video comes out, July 18th, I think this is the day where rookies report to some training camps in the NFL. The NFL isn't just uniform start date. Like, not everyone reports to camp at the same time. A lot of the times, it's rookies and quarterbacks report a couple days early, and then the training camps fully open, but they don't all open on the same day. Like, some teams' rookies will come in today, I think. Some teams tomorrow, the next day. So that's just how things work. If you look it up on Google, ESPN has this whole sheet that tells you like when each team starts reporting to camp. Devin 2 Chains, that's why I brought that up. He's a guy that I'm looking at as a Dolphins fan, as a fantasy football fan, what he's looking like in training camp. Interested to see his usage in preseason. And we're getting close to the Hall of Fame game. I believe it is August 3rd. Jets versus the Cleveland Browns. So we're back up on the board here. We got 3 running backs, which I feel fine with. I don't think we need to take our 4th running back just yet. I'd rather get a wide receiver. Looking at the board, Pickens, Addison, Brandon Cooks, Cortland Sutton. I've talked about how I don't like George Pickens. I even talked about that in yesterday's video. Another guy falling down my rankings. At some point, though, the fall gets too far to where I still think George Pickens is a good player. I just worry that the touchdowns aren't going to be there, and I worry that the receptions aren't going to be there. But there's also an alternate reality where Deontay Johnson gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, and George Pickens ends up being the fantasy football god that you drafted in like the 8th or 9th round. I'm still taking Addison ahead of him, though. I take Addison in so many of these mock drafts. I am so confident in him. I've been taking him on underdog a ton in paid drafts. I think Jordan Addison has the upside to be a top 18-ish wide receiver in fantasy football. Kirk Cousins isn't the best quarterback on earth, but this is a team that wants to throw the ball. Jordan Addison looked great at USC. Jordan Addison is going to never have to face the best coverage because the guy fucking next to him or on the other side of the field, is Justin Jefferson. So Jordan Addison never has to worry about playing up against the best corner. Jordan Addison is going to potentially have a huge season in his rookie year. I love to get at least 1 or 2 rookies at least on my fantasy football teams. Normally rookies, the way things go, if you're newer to fantasy football, most of the times they don't just start off week 1 taking a deuce on the defense, right? Jamar Chase did that, but a lot of the time, you draft them and you just wait. You like to see what they do, and then 3-4 weeks in the season, they start to sprout like a fucking flower, and you throw them into your lineup, and that's typically how things go. But again, sometimes these rookies just, week 1, come out the gate on fire. So after Jordan Addison, I want a bad bitch, Jordan Addison Ray, Cortland Sutton, Gabe Davis, George Pickens, and Darnell. Here comes the Mooney. I love Darnell Mooney as much as anyone, but I'm not picking him in the top 92-ish picks of fantasy football drafts. No way, Jose, am I doing that. Looking at the running backs, Khalil Herbert, Samaje Perine, Damian Harris. Wide receivers, Brandon Cooks, Juju Smith-Schuster, Rashad Master-Bateman, Jacoby Myers, Michael Thomas. Quarterbacks, T-Law, Deshaun Watson, Dickey, Dak Prescott, Tua. Tight ends, Freiermuth, Ingram, Njoku, Schultz, and Chig Okonkwo. So we drafted Kelce in the 1st round. So we're not drafting a backup tight end. If something happens to Kelce, we just pick someone else up. If Kelce is on bye, you just pick someone else up. You do not need to draft. If you are paying the price for Travis Kelce, you do not need to draft another tight end. If you pay the price for Lamar Jackson in the 5th round, in the 4th round, in the 6th round, or wherever, right? If you get one of these early quarterbacks, you get Fields even in the 7th round, which looks like a steal, then you don't have to draft a backup quarterback. The only time I'm drafting a backup quarterback is typically in like 12-team leagues or 14-team leagues. Definitely in a 14-team league, I'm drafting a backup quarterback. And when you're like, if you didn't get Mahomes or you didn't get one of the guys you trust, right? if you're in the range of you drafted Geno Smith and you're like, you know what, I like Geno Smith and I do too, but I'd feel more comfortable having Geno matched with Anthony Richardson, Geno matched with Jared Goff, right? So that you can feel a little bit more comfortable. I fully understand that. So here, right now, we have Bijan and Dameon Pierce are our RB1 and RB2. We also have James Conner, and that's it. We have 3 running backs, and we have Chris Olave, T. Higgins, Mike Evans, Jordan Addison, 4 wide receivers. Looking at the running backs, Khalil Herbert, Samaje Perine, Damian Harris, Rashad Penny, Jamal Williams, Jerick McKinnon. At some point, it starts to fall off, whereas the wide receivers are a lot more deep, right? You can talk yourself into Nico Collins maybe being like a top 24 receiver, right? There's no way you're really talking yourself into fucking Jaylen Warren unless there's an injury to Najee Harris or Kendre Miller unless Alvin Kamara just gets suspended all year into being top 24 guys, right? So you kind of have to pick your poison here. I'm going to go with Khalil Herbert here. I like Samaje Perine a ton as well. I think if the injury is more serious to Javonte Williams than we think, and we already know that Sean Payton has this tendency, even when Kamara is just fucking eating defenses alive, they still want to, Last of Us style, they still want to run with a second running back, Mark Ingram behind him. You know what I'm saying? So I think Samaje Perine, Khalil Herbert is the higher risk option. Samaje Perine is the safer option. I like them both a ton. I'm going to go with Samaje Perine this time, though, because I take Khalil Herbert so often in these. And like I said, you definitely want to, if you're doing a bunch of real drafts, differentiate. If you're doing just one draft, just take whoever the fuck you want, obviously. So after Samaje Perine, we see Zach Charbonnet, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, Rashad Master Bateman, Rashad Penny, Juju Smith-Schuster, Corvette, Brandon Cooks. The 11th opens with Khalil Herbert, Jacoby Myers, Damian Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Elijah Moore, Evan Ingram, and Elijah Mitchell. So we're back here again. We don't need any more tight ends. We don't need any more quarterbacks. So it's just wide receiver and running back the rest of the way. We have Olave. Normally I take a deep shot, step back 3, Stephen Curry on Michael Thomas a lot of times. But when we have Chris Olave, there's really no reason to do that, right? I don't need 2 fucking receivers on the Saints with Derek Carr as the quarterback, right? There's no reason to do that. Even if they both end up being great, I don't think I'm going to feel confident in most weeks playing both of them. Rondale Moore available, Allen Lazard, Nico Collins. I'm going to go Rondale Moore. If they shut down Kyler Murray all season, it'll be great for James Conner. It will kind of suck for Rondale Moore if Clayton Tune's the quarterback all year, but I think Rondale Moore has that big game upside, right? He's a little guy, just like Kyler Murray, but he's got that incredible speed. Nico Collins probably the safer pick, but again, I already have so many good receivers that I'm willing to just take more of the upside shot here and go with Rondale Moore. Had I have maybe taken another running back a little bit earlier, I probably would have went with Nico Collins because he's safer, in my opinion. After Rondale Moore, Tyler Algier, Michael Thomas, Jameson Williams, Hunter Renfrow. Don't be mistaken for the other Hunter Renfrow, who spells it with an E instead of a W, who plays baseball. Love to hit a nice parlay during the season. Hunter Renfrow home run, Hunter Renfrow touchdown. So looking at the board, Nico Collins is still here, so we don't need to do some mental gymnastics here. We're going to take him. Allen Lazard, you are really just you are smoking crack cocaine if you are willing to draft Allen Lazard. I get it, it's the 12th round, but like, dude, he's never going to do it. He's never going to do it, especially not in a Jets uniform. So we're going to go with Nico Collins. Again, this is a guy that I really like. He had a bunch of really good games over his career. He never really was consistent because the quarterback situation, ever since he's been in the NFL, has been garbage. But if you look at some games, he does look really good. He even out-targeted Brandon Cooks, who's a target hog in the NFL last season in a couple of games. Nico Collins is a guy I've been advocating for all summer long. Like that song by Kid Rock. So I'm all aboard the Nico Collins bandwagon. So there's a 71% chance that Nico Collins would have been available 2 rounds from now, Nick, you fucking jackass. If you guys want to see some funny videos, look up My House is Dirty on YouTube. Maybe I'm just like a child or something. I find that funny. It is so funny. It's like pranks. It gets me going every time. And not like gets the blood flowing downstairs. It just gets me chuckling. After Nico Collins, we see Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, Trevor Lawrence, Sky with 2 Y's, Moore, Kenneth Gainwell, David the Chief, Njoku, Dickie Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, Tua Tagovailoa, to his teammate Jeff Wilson, Jerick McKinnon, Danny Dimes, Dalton Schultz, Kirko Chains, and Chig Alcon Kuu, whose value might be in the shitter after they brought in wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. So we need at least another running back here. At least another running back. I love Raheem Mostert. I love Kendre Miller. And I like Jalen Warren. Najee Harris might be a Fugazi top 12 running back. Like, the problem with this, and while I've read so many positive reports on Jalen Warren and why he can be the starting back on the team or why it's going to be a great split share, I know Mike Tomlin just likes the workhorse running back. We've seen it through time. It stood the test of time. So are they really going to move to give the ball more to Jalen Warren? I don't know. I'm going to go with Kendre Miller, who might be the starter or at least getting a bunch of touches for the Saints while Alvin Kamara is suspended for like at least 4 games. So I think that's a good pick. Again, they're saying it's a reach, but they can give me a fucking reach around because that was a great pick. After Kendre Miller, Cole Kmet, Greg Dulcich, Jalen Warren, and Dawson Knox one time if you're with me. So I'm going to close out today's draft with, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 receivers. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs. In this kind of a league where you can start 2 flexes, I would rather go with another receiver over a running back. If you want to go running back here, I think your best shot is Raheem Mostert. We're going to go receiver, though. Allen Lazard is still here, so at this point, I'm fine taking him. But, like, it feels like every year you do the mental gymnastics, the fucking hamster's running a wheel in your brain. You're like, oh, Allen Lazard this, Allen Lazard that. And it never works out. A lot of hype for Romeo Doubs out of the early stuff that happened. And Romeo Doubs proving to be Jordan Love's favorite. Let's be honest, like, Christian Watson's the clear number 1 guy. I also like Jaden Reed, who they just drafted, but I'm going to go for the upside shot of Romeo Doubs, like the chance that this guy ends up being Jordan Love's like second favorite target. Maybe Jordan Love isn't absolute dog shit like people seem to think he is. I don't think he is, but some people seem to think that way. After Romeo Doubs, we see Tank Bigsby, one of my favorite late round running backs, Donta Foreman, Devin Singletary, Raheem Mostert, Allen Lazard, Cordero Patterson, and Chuba Hubbard. The rest of the 15th round is all defenses. So at the end of draft, you go with your defense and your kicker. I'm going to go kicker first. We're going to go with Justin Tucker, the fucker, if you wanted to go with any of the other kickers, or you wanted to go with a defense there, you could. So in terms of defense, this is where the real strategy comes in here. You know, draft a defense, playing a not-so-hot opponent week 1. The Chiefs, they play the Lions. They're out of there. The Dolphins, they play the Chargers. Not drafting them. The Steelers, they play the Niners. If Trey Lance plays, I'll take the Steelers. If it's going to be Big Cock Brock, I would rather not have them. The Saints, they play the Titans, which are starting to make my butthole tighten a little bit because they now have DeAndre Hopkins. But the Saints still have a good defense, so I think that's not like the worst option. Plus, the Saints, even if they don't get a huge point total in week 1, they get Carolina, they get Green Bay, Tampa, New England, Houston, like a bunch of 6 games in a row, really, where you can talk yourself into the Saints being like a top-end defensive stream. That week, the Bengals are playing up against the Browns. You know that one's probably going to end up being low scoring. The Packers got the Bears. The Browns got the Browns have the Bengals. The Commanders have Arizona. Let's be honest, we have some Arizona players on our team, but we already know whoever the starting quarterback is going to make some mistakes. The Commanders' defense isn't as good as people have talked them up to be in the past, but they're also not like dust. They're not terrible, so I'm fine with the Commanders' defense for that week in week number 1. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. So we got a B-, 82 out of 100. Our team quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Running backs are Bijan Robinson and Dameon Pierce. Our receivers are Chris Olave and T. Higgins. Our tight end is Travis Kelce. Our flexes are James Conner and Mike Evans. Our defense is the left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders. Justin Tucker is our kicker. Our bench is Jordan Addison Ray, Samaje Perine, Rondell Moore, Nico Collins, Kendre Miller, and Romeo Doubs. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you hit that like button. Follow me on Twitter if you want, at NotoriousFantasy. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.